So now let's talk about the endpoints with layered host security. When we talk about that, we're talking about our systems, our servers, our desktops, our laptops, our smartphones. All of these things are hosts on your network, and we have to protect them. And these are often the most at-risk part of your network because your users are directly using them, and users are our biggest vulnerability. So you have to put in common security controls and start layering these to give yourself good security. Things like strong passwords and strong authentication. Maybe that's using multi-factor authentication, using like a smart card token, or two-factor authentication using a texting for login. You also need encryption. That could be either file or full disk encryption. You have host firewalls and host IPSs. You have data loss prevention software. You can have whitelisting and blacklisting software, anti-malware and antivirus software. Doing good patch management is also good for your host. System hardening and setting up those configuration files really tight to make sure your system is as strong as it can be. Configuration management, file integrity monitoring, and logging the events and issues. All of these are common security controls that you need to think about when you're building your network. I'm going to dive into a couple of them in this lecture that are really important though. Things like cryptography. Cryptography has to do with encryption and hashing. And when you're encrypting your files or the full disk, this is what's called data at rest. You want to make sure that if somebody steals that hard drive or steals those files, they can't read them. And that's where cryptography comes into play. Proper storage of the encryption keys and passphrases, though, is critical to your security. Because if I use the same password on everything and somebody gets that one password, it's all open now, right? And if I have a server and everyone knows the password, there's really no protection there. So you want to make sure that you're using good, strong passwords or passphrases and storing those keys in an offline manner. Now, when we talk about hashing, this is the way that we do file integrity checking. And so you have to make sure that those files are getting hash values and those are compared against a known good database. There's software that will do this for you. It just depends on what your company wants to invest in as they're building out their security architecture. Now, logging, monitoring, and validation is another critical area that you need to be looking at. Now, we look from the server and the host perspective, and all those logs need to be centrally monitored. So they should be sent off of those devices into a centralized server. This centralized server is called a syslog server, or you'll use a SIEM product, which is Security Information and Event Management. Things like Tripwire, AlienVault, and Splunk are great examples of SIEM environments. You also would want to make sure that those hosts, that you're validating them. And one of the ways to validate that they're in the proper security posture is by using configuration management. And Microsoft provides a great tool for this called the SCCM, but there's many other ones out there. And this is going to allow you to validate the system settings, the software versions, across all of your hosts that are sitting on your domain. And that's part of that validation perspective. Now, we put all that together, that starts helping us secure those endpoints, and we put that together with the layered defense in depth from our network we talked about, and we start getting into a much more secure network than we would otherwise.